Two persons inside have. Full blast engine room.
Look at what is happening in the Persian Gulf and the Indian Ocean right now, because we are entering a dangerous new phase of global conflict. Iran is no longer staying in the shadows to direct its proxies. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has just officially announced the fifth wave of attacks under what Tehran calls Operation True Promise 4. And folks, the targets this time are American-linked military and logistical assets across both land and sea. Listen closely to the detailed evidence from ground sources. In the Indian Ocean, 4 drones struck an ammunition-carrying vessel near the Jabal Ali anchorage. Successive explosions have reportedly left the ship disabled. But that's not all. The IRGC also claimed to have used Qatar 380 missiles, their formidable anti-ship cruise missiles, to hit a combat support vessel supplying fuel to U.S. naval forces in the region. And here is the truly shocking point. Iran asserts it launched a direct strike on a U.S. military installation in the Abdullah Mubarak area of Kuwait using 4 ballistic missiles and 12 drones. The IRGC claims that American forces sustained extensive damage and heavy casualties. While there is no independent confirmation of these losses yet, the message from Tehran is crystal clear and ruthless. They have vowed to keep the gates of hell open and are preparing for a prolonged confrontation from the Gulf all the way to the Indian Ocean. Washington is facing the reality that its allies and bases across 3 Gulf nations are in the direct crosshairs of an Iran at its most aggressive state yet. While the IRGC's fifth wave of attacks is roiling the Gulf, as I just mentioned, at the epicenter in Tehran, an era has collapsed. Iranian state television has officially confirmed what the world has been holding its breath for over the last 24 hours. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is dead. Imagine the shock. The man who has led Iran with an iron fist since 1989 is gone. Detailed evidence from the scene shows this was no natural departure. Reports confirm Khamenei was killed in a precision airstrike on his high-security compound in Tehran, a strike that President Donald Trump just claimed on Truth Social was the result of the most sophisticated tracking systems in history. It wasn't just Khamenei. Sources from Fars news agency report that his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild also perished in the bombing. And folks, this is where the gates of hell truly open for Iran's power structure. Under Article 111 of the Islamic Republic's Constitution, a temporary leadership council has been formed immediately to prevent the paralysis of the state apparatus. This council consists of 3 figures: reformist President Masoud Pezeshkian, hardline Judiciary Chief Gholam Hossein Mohseni Aj, and cleric Alireza Arafi from the Guardian Council. Pezeshkian and Aj are political polar opposites now forced into the same boat mid-storm. Their mission is to maintain stability until the assembly of experts comprising 88 clerics can select a successor. Meanwhile, the IRGC, already frantically launching the retaliatory strikes we saw in Part 1, has vowed revenge for the Imam of the Ummah. Iran is currently in a state of controlled anarchy, where the death of one man has left a massive power vacuum right as bombs continue to detonate in Kuwait and the UAE. The sheer brutality of these numbers, because this wasn't just an assassination, it was a total wave of destruction carried out in broad daylight. While I discussed the death of Khamenei in Part 2, the reality is that Iran's entire military brain was struck simultaneously. U.S. and Israeli coalition sources confirm they dropped more than 550 munitions and 30 heavy bombs, targeting over 500 strategic targets across Iran in a single surge. This was a coordinated air and naval assault, triggered the moment intelligence confirmed Khamenei was meeting with his Supreme Advisory Council in a fortified complex. They didn't wait for nightfall. They struck during the day to exploit an operational window while Tehran's entire power elite was gathered. The receipts of the fallen are printing out in a long list. It wasn't just the Supreme Leader. The strike on the Defense Council complex eliminated Mohammad Pakpour, the IRGC Ground Forces commander, Aziz Nasirzadeh, the Iranian defense minister, and Ali Shamkhani, the top security advisor. Even Mohammad Shirazi, who has headed Khamenei's military office since 1989, could not escape this bombardment. This is exactly why the IRGC is frantically launching missiles at U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf, as we saw in Part 1. They are reacting in desperation as their entire core command structure evaporated in an instant. President Donald Trump asserted on Truth Social that sophisticated tracking systems left Iranian leaders with nothing they could do but face destruction. It was a campaign meticulously timed to the second to ensure that no one in Iran's innermost circle of power could retreat into fortified underground bunkers. Look at what is rising from the ruins in Tehran. Because the retaliation we saw in Part 1 was just the beginning. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has just issued its starkest warning yet, declaring that they are preparing for what they call the most ferocious offensive operation in history. These are no longer empty threats. This is a manifesto for total war aimed directly at Israel, U.S. military bases, and every Washington ally in the Middle East. In a fiery statement, the IRGC vowed revenge for the man they call the Imam of the Ummah. They asserted that the hand of revenge of the Iranian nation will never let go, promising a severe and decisive punishment. Alongside the regular armed forces and the vast Basij militia, they declared they would continue Khamenei's path and deliver an unforgettable lesson to the aggressors. The Iranian cabinet reinforced this message, warning that this great crime will never go unanswered. Fury is crystallizing into a full-scale war mechanism. While the Temporary Leadership Council attempts to maintain the state apparatus, as I mentioned in Part 2, practical control is slipping into the hands of the most hawkish factions within the IRGC. They are mobilizing every resource from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean, turning the entire region into a massive powder keg. Washington targeted the head, but now they face a body in a state of frenzied resistance, where the loss of the supreme leader has become the catalyst for an unprecedented wave of violence. We have just witnessed the collapse of an order that has existed for over 3 decades in the Middle East. The elimination of Tehran's power head is not the end of a war, but the beginning of a new chapter filled with chaos and unpredictability. The receipts of destruction I listed in Part 3 may have wiped out a generation of leadership, but they have simultaneously shattered every remaining diplomatic rule between Washington and Tehran, U.S. Intelligence assessments have warned that the removal of Khamenei could throw the doors wide open for the most hawkish and radical factions within the IRGC to seize absolute control. There is no longer a supreme leader to restrain the field generals who are frantically firing missiles at U.S. linked ships as we saw in Part 1. The balance of power in the Middle East is currently shaking violently as the world holds its breath for the next move of a wounded and enraged Iran. The retaliation Iran just launched isn't only targeting Israel or U.S. bases. It is dragging the entire Gulf region into a cycle of total violence. While some Iranians may be celebrating in silence as leaked videos suggest, Tehran's war machine is being restructured under the hands of those who have nothing left to lose. Washington aimed for the jugular, but now they face the collective fury of an entire system. The question now isn't whether the old order has collapsed, it already has. The real question is whether anyone, in Washington or Tehran, still has the ability to control the fire erupting from these gates of hell.